Chapter 40. Duke instinctively didn't want anyone to know that Sol, with whom he had once clashed, was now being heavily reused by Mentor Kaz. Then rest assured there's no way he'll pass the first test. Didn't you see how magic starved he looked during rune class? No matter how fast someone learns, if they can't cast any sorcery, what good does it do? Those still bitter from being rebuked by Sol spoke with clear hostility. He even added maliciously, from what Teacher Goody said, if any apprentice who fails the test will be punished. Who knows? Maybe Sol will get kicked back to being a servant, right, Rocky? Yeah, Rocky replied gloomily. Ah? Jenna's voice held a tinge of pity. That's kind of sad, though. Yeah, Rocky quickly added. Watching his friend constantly sneak glances at Jenna, Doge rolled his eyes internally. Just as the group was gossiping excitedly, the door to room 603 opened. The chatter stopped instantly. Sol stepped out of the dorm, walked to the neighboring room 604 and knocked. He called out to Kelly, who was buried in her studies inside. Did the tower get any new apprentices? Yeah, why? Kelly, still holding a thick scroll of parchment, looked at Sol with surprise. I didn't think you'd care about that sort of thing. Is there someone among them with a strong dark affinity? Sol asked. Kelly expressionlessly spread her hands, the parchment thumping against the doorframe with a dull sound. And you think I would care about that sort of thing? Sol was once again left speechless by Kelly and couldn't help but laugh. I figured you'd be curious about a new genius. Our progress isn't even comparable anymore. We'll talk again when someone actually catches up, Kelly said, raising an eyebrow at Sol, one hand under her chin. You seem pretty curious, though. Want me to find out for you? No need. With a mysterious look, Sol folded his arms and walked off, leaving Kelly standing there, completely baffled. What the heck is he playing at? Just trying to torture my curiosity. Kelly pursed her lips in thought, but when she saw someone walking toward her from the corner of her eye, she quickly ducked back inside and slammed the door shut. Duke took the full brunt of the slammed door, the friendly smile on his face instantly turning sour. Behind him came a burst of mocking laughter, making him clench his fists, wishing he could just smash the door open. But by now, everyone knew Kelly had become Mentor Gujua's favorite. She was often brought along for direct, personal instruction. It was a level of special treatment most apprentices could only dream of. Among the new apprentices, rumors swirled that she would be the first to advance to second rank and might even reach third rank soon. Countless people were eager to get closer to her. Even the smallest scrap of resources from her could be enough to help someone survive the apprentice tests. Yet Kelly, for some unfathomable reason, only wanted to be around Sol. All her warmth and cheer were reserved solely for him. Unintentionally, this only deepened the resentment others felt towards Sol. But Sol himself, the target of all this resentment, couldn't care less. 3:30 a.m. Sol's eyes suddenly snapped open. The haze of sleep dissolved like a retreating tide, and clarity returned to his mind. A few days ago, his former servant George had delivered him a copy of the duty roster. Today, it was Bran's turn one of Sid's lackeys to clean the corridors. Sol dressed quickly, took out the carefully preserved phantom sound eye, and left the dorm. Bran, taller than Sol by a full head, hunched as he pushed a cart along the west tower's sloping hallway. He tugged at his collar now and then. The temperature inside the tower wasn't low, yet the chill seemed ever-present. Ever since that damn Sol had become a damned apprentice, Bran was forced to return to the corridor cleaning duties. It was the highest-risk job among servants. Some went out in the middle of the night and never came back. Could be 10 days. Could be months. People just disappeared. Lucky bastard that George, already kissing up to Sol. George had been reassigned by the steward and no longer participated in the midnight cleaning shift. Now all the male servants understood George had latched onto Sol's leg. They'd immediately changed their tune, elevating the once bullied George to a pedestal. George now slept at the far end of the dorm, taking Bran's original spot. Bran, having lost status, wasn't openly bullied, but all the special treatment he once had was gone. He had to do work he previously never touched. And that meant danger. Still, Bran wasn't completely unprepared. When it came to these treacherous night shifts, he had little confidence in his survival. Ever since Sol had become an apprentice, that second-rank apprentice had never sought him out again. But before then, the same apprentice had gifted him a life-saving tool. Bran tugged his collar again and reached under it to touch a small scented bead. It was a translucent bead about the size of a thumb, strung on a black cord. Inside it was a tiny black insect, suspended like amber. Bran didn't know what it was, but the second-rank apprentice had assured him the bead could protect him from ordinary spectral threats. It had been an advance payment for tormenting Sol. Unfortunately, once Sol left the 7th ranks, that apprentice had no more use for Bran, never acknowledged him again, let alone took him on as a personal servant. If only things had turned out differently, he could have had even the steward bowing to him. Bitterness aside, Bran still felt a bit of smug satisfaction. With this magic item, he hadn't lost out entirely. The elation brought by the bead didn't last long, though. The tower's eerie atmosphere soon weighed him down again. When the hell can I leave this godforsaken place? If I knew I'd be stuck as a servant forever, I should have just gone back to farming in the village. Regret was pointless, it only drained his will. Bran let out a long sigh and kept pushing the car forward. He stayed quiet as he turned the corner to the 6th floor. Suddenly, the cart's wheels jammed in a crack between the stones. No matter how hard he pushed, they wouldn't budge. What the hell now? Bran squatted down, annoyed, trying to lift the wheel. That's when he saw a foot step down onto the stone right in front of the cart. A barefoot Cassie paled, almost purple, thin and bony. Then another foot landed beside it, facing the opposite direction, heeled toward him. The 2 feet were perfect mirror opposites. Hell no. Bran didn't care about the cart anymore. He yanked the scented bead from under his collar and raised it high above his head, eyes squeezed shut, praying it would ward off the horror before him. Nothing happened for a while. He cracked one eye open, and all the hair on his body stood on end. He was now surrounded by bare feet. Around him and the cart, feet everywhere. Each one was a mismatched pair, one forward, one backward. No 2 pairs were alike. Some belonged to adults, some to children, some to the elderly. Bran was trembling with every breath. The scene before him utterly grotesque. But even more terrifying than the horror was a familiarity. He'd seen this before. When he was 10 years old, barbarians had invaded his village, gathering every living thing they could find. People and animals alike were split in 2, one forward, one backward, impaled on stakes and left hanging in midair. End of chapter. Chapter 41. It was the evil sacrificial rite of the barbarians. Empowered by wicked forces, the wounds of the dead, cleaved in half, were sealed shut with mud and ash. No blood flowed, only half faces twisted in despair. One half stared at the bonfire, the other at the deep night. Bran was pinned down in the mire, his mouth tightly covered by his sister's hand. The 2 of them lay side by side in the swamp, their faces coated in thick mud, leaving only 2 small breathing holes in the tiniest slit to watch the outside world. They didn't even dare shed tears for fear the salty drops would wash away the mud and reveal their presence. That became Bran's eternal nightmare. He had never imagined he would one day witness such a scene again. It had clearly been years. He truly believed he had long forgotten it. Bran trembled as he clutched his head, covering his ears, squeezing his eyes shut. He didn't dare look to see whether those opposing feet belonged to cleave bodies. His right hand still clutched the black string tied to the scent bead, praying it could drive away these terrifying memories. Bran. Suddenly, a familiar voice whispered in his ear. "It's all right now, little brother." Bran's trembling halted. Slowly, he lifted his head. Sis. A plain-looking village girl smiled gently at her brother. Seeing his pale face, she continued to softly comfort him. "It's all right, little brother, they're all gone now. Ki. But Bran's teeth began chattering violently, his lips losing all color, turning deathly pale. "Sis." The village girl looked puzzled and took a step forward, stretching out a mud-covered hand. "Brother, what are you afraid of?" Bran dropped to the ground with a thud. He tried to retreat, but his limbs were stiff, unable to move an inch. How could he not be afraid? His sister had not survived that massacre. No, his sister hadn't died in that massacre. She died at the hands of her very own younger brother. The siblings hidden in the mud hadn't escaped the barbarians' keen senses. But before they could be discovered, a group of wizard apprentices happened to arrive, interrupting the impending slaughter. They came by carriage from a distance. At the sight of them, the barbarians panicked and fled in a hurry, not even taking all their sacrificial offerings. Fortunately, those barbarians didn't escape justice. One apprentice suddenly flew after them. With thunder and lightning, Bran watched in awe as the once arrogant, cruelly grinning barbarians were reduced to heaps of blackened charcoal. Bran's eyes widened. Even with the muddy water stinging them, he refused to blink. He bore the pain, watching as the apprentice returned to the carriage and slowly approached him and his sister. The siblings crawled out of the mud and fell to their knees, thanking the wizard for saving their lives. But beyond gratitude, a new and uncontrollable desire ignited in Bran's heart. A turning point in fate had come. If he could follow this man, could he become a wizard too? Bran saw himself soaring through the sky, effortlessly slaughtering his enemies. Becoming a wizard, this was the life he deserved. But the dream did not last long. It was cruelly shattered. After his sister's desperate pleas, the wizard agreed to take them back. But only one. The other would be left behind. Because, they said, there was only room for one more on the carriage. Bran couldn't understand. There were 2 carriages, one crammed with over a dozen children and the other more spacious, carrying only the 2 wizards. And yet, the only carriage they were allowed to board was the crowded one. Riding with the wizards was a form of blasphemy. The lightning-wielding wizard turned to his companion and asked, "Take the boy. Maybe, he looks like he's got some potential." But the pale-faced wizard firmly pointed at Bran's sister. "No, I want a maid." The lightning wizard frowned. "Maids aren't much use." The pale wizard insisted, "You don't understand, a maid represents justice." The lightning wizard shrugged, offering no further protest, surprisingly agreeing to the decision. Bran's face turned even paler than the wizard's. Was he going to be left behind? He looked helplessly at his sister. Say it. Hurry. Tell them to take me. Leave yourself behind. Say it. You've always loved me. You always gave me the best things first. Say it. Let them take me, and when I become a wizard, I'll come back for you. But the girl who had always protected him now only lowered her head, twisting the hem of her shirt with trembling hands. She was hesitating. Bran couldn't believe it. He silently crouched down, already feeling despair. Catching sight of her brother shrinking into himself, the girl finally made her choice. She opened her mouth, trembling, her voice full of love and sorrow. My lords, please take my brother. Clang! She didn't get to finish. A rock slammed into the back of her head, knocking her to the ground. Bran stared in shock. She clutched her bleeding wound and looked back at him, disbelief in her eyes. That shock was quickly turning into fury. She was angry. But Bran had never felt more clear-headed. So clear. She was angry so she wouldn't give up the spot to him anymore. He stepped forward without emotion. How much strength could a poor boy have? He straightened his back, breathing heavily, and looked up with hopeful eyes at the wizards who had calmly watched everything unfold. My lords, now I'm the only one left. The pale wizard pinched his nose as if Bran reeked of filth. He came to recruit apprentices and found a beast instead. The lightning wizard said nothing. They both turned and walked back to the carriage, not stopping Bran from climbing into the wagon of children on his own. The memories surged. His sister, whom he had once torn apart, was now standing before him again with a perfect face. This is an illusion, Bran told himself. She can't still be alive. After all these years, even her ghost wouldn't come for me. He believed he wasn't that little boy anymore, clinging to his sister in terror. Just an illusion. Did it really think it could frighten him? Bran lifted his head and glared at his sister's face, raising his fist. I'm not afraid of you. What can you do now? His sister smiled. Of course, her lips. Why were her lips so perfect? Glaring at the red lips, Bran swung his fist again. A hand caught it firmly. Bran looked up to see Sid standing before him, watching coldly. So it was an illusion. It had to be a test from Master Sid. That's why the scent bead had no effect. My lord. Bran grinned. Did I pass your test?